Great. What are we doing today and the next 3 days? We are doing review of basically Unit 4. Unit 4, we covered a lot. We covered a lot in Unit 4. Just to go over the topics we'll be reviewing while building this application. We'll be reviewing collection views, and everything we're talking about is being done programmatically, right? So we're reviewing collection views. We are reviewing user defaults. That's all part of persistence. Right? So persistence is also user defaults. Persistence is saving data to the phone, to the device, so that the next time the user launches the app, they have the data. We'll be also reviewing file manager and documents directory in order to save the articles in New York Times top stories. We will be also reviewing custom delegation, how to create our custom protocols, and how to set up the delegate objects there, so that somebody else could set themselves as a delegate to listen for changes. The big change our app will be listening for is changes when somebody saves an article. So when somebody saves an article in the detail view controller, my saved article controller needs to get information about that change. So we'll use custom delegation along with our persistent data persistence delegate to do that. Programmatic UI from ground up, we'll be removing the storyboard, and we are responsible for assessment to remove storyboard. Everything we're doing today, we are responsible for on the assessment. It's going to be fair game there. Animations we'll add, and gestures we'll add as we add some polish to the app towards the end. Okay, so those are the topics we are reviewing. Those are the wireframes for the app, subject to change as we go. But at the end, we have 3 tabs in our tab controller. We'll have some sort of search bar, which we also do programmatically. We'll have a custom collection view cell, which we'll all do programmatically, in that case without a zip. We'll have a settings view where the user could have a picker view and change the news section they want to read here. So there's arts, there's home, there's other news sections, there's business, right? So the user goes to settings, they go to the click wheel, they say I want to read technology news. It clicks, it saves to user defaults, they go back to their first page and they see all technology news. Okay? We might change that UI depending on if we have time there. Maybe we just add some collection view of like labels, whatever it is there. Because right now, as we scroll through it, it's going to hit our API. So, just to keep that in mind. Next up, we have our saved articles, which we'll also do using the collection view. We'll have a collection view, and we'll have 2 items. We'll have it vertically scrolling, 2 items per row. And yes, very good. Let's keep going here. And our detail view will look similar to this one, where we have, when we click on an article, it takes us to a detail view controller. In the detail view controller, we'll have a UI tab item. When the user clicks on it, it saves the article. We'll have a bigger image. Those are the images here in the quotations that the API provides. It provides a super jumbo image, which is 2048 by 1365. But the 2 we'll go after. The detail, we use the super jumbo. And for the news feed, we'll use the thumbnail large image, 150 by 150. And that's about it. We'll add an abstract headline. It's not the full article because this is more for like developing purposes. It's not the full article of the New York Times site, right? It gives us information of what the first few lines, abstract headlines, but not the full article. There's an HTML that could take you to the full article if you have paid subscription, whatever there. But that's our detail, that's what it looks like. And the big part of delegation will be when the user clicks, here and they say save, right? I want to update my delegate. So anytime I save on my persistence object, I'll have a delegate listening in my saved articles, and that will populate, it will reload the table view or the collection view, okay? So this is how we'll use custom delegation there with our data persistence class. Any questions? Okay, so that'll hit all our topics, and all our topics here. We'll have some animation gestures at the end. Okay, cool. So let's go create an Xcode project. Let me get an empty window here. Get closer somewhere here. Here is good. Let's create a new Xcode project. We'll call it NYTTopStories. Export new project. Zoom in here. So NYT, New York Times, top stories. And let's go ahead and add unit test here so we have it from the beginning here. So click on unit test because we'll also do a unit test for our model. But know that you could always add unit test after the fact. Okay, so great. So at this point, we'll click next and we'll say create. Great. So when we get our assessment, first thing we do, we get rid of the storyboard. So I'll go ahead, I will delete my storyboard, my main.storyboard file. I will delete it. I'll move to trash. Next, I'll go to the info plist and I'll remove all the storyboard references. So I will go over to my info.plist. I will delete my main storyboard name here. I'll go inside of my scene delegate configuration and I'll also remove my storyboard name here, delete. And at this point, I'll test to see if everything went well. Where is my device? Okay, so I'll run the app on my simulator. If everything went well, I should get a black screen indicating I have no view controller or storyboard to begin with. Right? So that's what we should be having. We should be having an empty black screen. That means everything went well. Good? So far, so good? Luba, you have a question? Go back to your simulator. Make sure you have, and also an old bundle there, but it should be okay on your simulator if you're running a simulator. Aaron, double check Luba's computer if you get a second. Aaron is gonna double check on your machine. Okay, so we have gotten rid of the storyboard. Next step, let's start looking at our app where we headed. So we have an app with 3 tabs, so we need some sort of tab controller. Everybody, right? So I need a tab controller to manage my view controllers. The tab controller will be the root view controller of my scene delegate or of my window, right? So we'll go create a tab controller subclass. Let's go do that now, actually. So let's go over to, let's delete this view controller here. The view controller that came with the project, let's also delete that. So we have a new slate, move to trash. And we'll create a series of controllers. So I will right click, I'll select new file. It will be a Cocoa Touch class. Subclass of what? UI tab bar controller, very good. So here we have UI tab bar controller. And let's give it a name. We will call it New York Times. Let's just call it Top Stories for now. Top Stories. Tab controller. So Top Stories tab controller, it's a subclass of UI tab bar controller. We click next. We say create. Great. To test things out, we'll give it a background color. Let me zoom in here, sorry, change my preference here. You should now be in your tab bar controller subclass. Preferences, where am I? Font, large. Okay, so I'm inside of my UI tab bar controller subclass, and I'll give it a background color. So I'll say background color. Again, background colors with programmatic UI is your friend, right? It's that second pair of eyes that tells you, hey, my thing went well. So here we'll just say yellow for now. Clean up some comments here. Format my code. Okay. What's the next step? Where are we going next? We're going to the scene delegate. Okay, so now we are going to the scene delegate to set up our window object. So in the scene delegate here, let's set up our window object. Right now my window object is nil, doesn't have a frame. I need to go ahead and set that up. So I'll instantiate it with UI window, and I'll use frame here, initializer, and here I'm saying UI screen dot main dot bounds. UI screen dot main dot bounds is the width and the height of the device. So that is my window. Next, I will say, let's go to our guardlet here and say window scene. I'll associate my scene delegate with that particular window here. So now we'll say window scene equal to the window scene of this scene delegate. Great. To present the window on screen, I'll say window dot make key and visible. Make this window the key window and put it on screen. What's the next step we're missing here? Matt? We need to set up the root controller, right? As Tanya was saying as well. So here we need to say window dot root view controller equal to, in our case, TOPStories tab controller. So come Tuesday, we know how to set that up. There's no friction there. We do that. We test our tab controller by running our app at this point and see if we have some sort of background color, right? Right? At this point, I know that my project has been set up as far as like getting a color. So I could take a step back. I could start pushing to GitHub because we're also looking at that for assessments, right? Frequent commits. We have the entire day to work on a project. One commit is not enough. So right here, I'll take a pause and I will go ahead and push my code to GitHub. As I said, with group projects, please stick with terminal, but here you're working on a solo project, it's fine to just go ahead and use source control, okay? From Xcode, yes? All right, so I'll go to source control, I'll say create get repositories. That's very similar to when we say get init in terminal, okay? Source control, get repositories, create, it creates a local repository. Great, yes? You put your project somewhere that has a Git already. So go ahead, close Xcode and remove your project, put it somewhere that doesn't have a Git history already. Maybe put it on your desktop or documents folder. Okay, so next step, let's go ahead and push to GitHub. So I go to source control, navigator. I right click on my folder in the source control navigator and I say create New York Times Stories remote. Right here. For my description, it's always good to put a description here. I will simply put app review to demonstrate the following, and then we'll say collection view, we'll say custom delegation, we'll say persistence using user defaults and documents directory. What else we have here? We'll say programmatic UI, setting up UI programmatically. Animations and gestures. Okay? And visibility, we keep it public. We could make it private if you don't want anybody else to see it. In that case, we do want people to see it because employers are looking at our GitHub. So we'll keep it public here and we'll say create. At this point, it will now create this repository and push it to GitHub. And now we could go verify if it's on GitHub. So we go to our browser, We go to our repositories, and we should have it populate right here. So now I have my New York Times top stories in here, okay? Cool? So as we're working on the project throughout, we want to make commits, right? Great. Let's go back to our project. Any questions? Everybody's good? Everybody pushed their project successfully? No, Xcode does all that for you. So in the pushing, it creates that repo with the name you provided. Great. So our app is in a state where it has a top controller. Awesome. Get in there. Next step in our app, let us populate the view controllers. So we have 3 view controllers. We'll go ahead and we'll create those 3 view controllers. We have a newsfeed controller, we have a read later controller, and we have a settings controller. Let's go ahead and create those controllers, and we'll give those controllers over to the top controller. So let's go do that. Actually, let's set up our folders because we'll have many files coming through. So let's take a moment to set up our file structure. Let's take a moment to set up our file structure. So my app delegate, my scene delegate, I'm holding down command what I'm doing here. So assets, launch, not info plist. Do not touch it, do not move it, leave it where exactly it is. Okay, so those 4 files, right? Everybody? Okay. I right click on it and I say new group from selection. And I give it some name, supporting files. Great. And I'll move it right above info plist. I'm not moving the info plist file. I'm not touching the info plist file. Next up, we have our controller. I'll put that in a group. So I'll say new group from selection, and I'll call it controllers. Great. So right now we're dealing with controllers. That's enough for now. As we deal with our views, we'll create a views folder. As we deal with our model, we'll create a models folder. So our code is nice and organized. Next, let's go create a new file. CocoaTouch class, subclass of what? UI view controller. Very good. So here we'll say UI view controller. And for the first one, we said we are calling it news feed controller. Or just call it newsfeed view controller, that's fine. Newsfeed view controller, great, great, great. Say next and create. Next, let's go create our second tab. So new file, CocoaTouch class, and this time we'll call it saved article view controller. That's fine. So saved article view controller is also subclass of UI view controller. And we are saying next, and we are saying create. For our last, well not last, we have maybe 2 more. But for our third tab, it will be settings. So right click, new file, CocoaTouch class. And here we'll call it settings view controller. Perfect. Create. Awesome. So like we always do with programmatic UI, we want to give things colors. So we'll give them colors. So in each of them, we'll go give them a color in their view did load. So for the newsfeed controller, you give it a color of your choosing. And those colors, we'll not keep those colors. We're just testing with those colors. So we'll say background color equal to red. That's for the newsfeed controller. I'm going now over to the saved articles controller. I'm giving it a different color this time. I'll say orange. And I'll go to my third, my settings controller. Also give it some color here. And I'll say green. Great. At this point in my assessment, what am I doing? I set up my 3 controllers, my tabs. What's the next step? The what? Yeah, so add them to the root controller or the tab controller, right? So now I'm navigating back to my subclass of my tab controller. And what am I doing now? Chelsea? I'm making instances of them. Great. But before I even make instances of them, I could simply say, because again, we're testing here, I could simply say view controllers gets my newsfeed, it gets my saved articles, and it gets my settings. So we'll test that first, and then we'll go make the instance, right? Because again, we really want to see, is everything being worked accordingly how I want it to do, right? Then I'll go create my instance. Very similar to when you set up a collection view, before you even do the API client, guys. See if the collection view actually works. Like give it some number of items, right? Give it 20, give it 50, whatever it is. Give it colors. See if it actually renders according to what you want it to do, right? Then you could go ahead and work on your API client or whatever it is there. The less friction you have in what you're developing, the better. Small test, small wins, and then you keep going. So next, let's go ahead and run this and see what we have. So that makes sense. My news feed was red. It's the first one. We do not have tab bar items yet, so nothing really appears here as far as titles. But I could go click in the center and get orange, and I could go click on the right and get green. So at this point, we have our 3 controllers set up. Chelsea? It's white. Double check, are you doing it in the tab controller subclass? Are you doing the view controllers in the tab controller subclass? Aaron is going to double check. Cool. Great. So now we know it works. We'll go ahead and do what Chelsea says. We'll now go create instances of each of those view controllers and give each their own tab item. Right? So we'll stay right here. And we'll say private lazy var, call it newsfeed, VC is of type newsfeed. Okay, this guy is some sort of view controller of type newsfeed controller. Doesn't take in any arguments yet. We'll see that more in Unit 5, how we have initializers with arguments there on our view controllers. Next, I'll go ahead and return my view controller. And here I need to give it some sort of tab item. So here I will say view controller dot tab item. So the tab bar item is that bottom item in the tab. So that's where we configure it. We configure it with UI tab bar item. And there's a few choices. The choice we're after is the one that says, give me a string for the title, give me an image for the tab item image, and give me a tag, right? Because we could probably want to jump to a different tag. The reason for the tag, it allows you to jump through which tag you want. For example, if you favorite something, I could say jump to tab 2. Everybody with me, right? So that's why we have tags here, and you want to associate the tag according to the place of the controller. Okay, so here we say title, we'll say newsfeed. For our image, UI image, we'll come back to this and we'll say 0. Okay, for our image name, we'll use some system image name. We love iOS 13. And here, I think we'll use glasses for now. Let me double check if this is correct. Everybody has SF symbols downloaded? Awesome. So I'll jump over to SF symbols and I'll see if I am right with the glasses here. So it's actually called eyeglasses and not just glasses. It's up to you what you want to use, but we'll use eyeglasses for the first tab image. So I jump back and I say eyeglasses here. Awesome. So this is the first step. This is good. I will just go ahead and copy this and create 2 more. So 1, 2. The second tab is called Saved Articles VC. Our third tab is called Settings VC. And what are we changing? So this one becomes my saved articles controller. This one becomes my saved articles controller. Tab item is, the name of this one, we'll call it saved articles. Image, what image did I use for this? Bookmark? Was it bookmark folder? Let me double check his folder correct. Somebody verify if folder is correct here. Is it correct folder? Yes? In SF symbols? Settings view controller, we have settings view controller. Yeah, just a folder, yeah. So that's fine. Just folder, right? Okay, cool, thank you. Settings is settings, and we'll call this settings. Mini loves this one, right? Your favorite symbol. So we'll use the gear wheel for the settings here. Great. So at this point, we have created 3 instances of view controllers. Yes, you could go ahead and create some sort of extension or function to return you those things, but you still have to typecast it to the thing you want. Okay? Keep that in mind. Next, let's go set that up. So initially, we had test here, but now we have our instances. So we'll use our instances here. This one is newsfeed. This one is saved articles. And the last one is our settings instance. We do not need yellow here anymore. We could take that out. Clean up our viewed load. And let me just keep this up here for now while we type. So verify, make sure your tag is 012. Your tab items, you have newsfeed, you have saved articles, and you have settings. For system images, we have gear, we have folder, and we have eyeglasses. And tomorrow we'll come back and do some more work here with the data persistence injection, right? Because our settings, not our settings, our saved articles will need a data persistence, and our newsfeed will need a data persistence. And the same data persistence from the tab controller. Okay? All right. Yes? Cool. All right. So at this point, we'll run the app again and see what we have. Okay, so we do have all our items being rendered. We have our eyeglasses for the first tab. We have our folder for the second tab. And we have our settings wheel for the third tab. Very good. I could take a step here and make a commit. That's a good place to stop and make a commit. So I'll go to my source control, I'll go to commit, and I write in the commit message. I'll say added child controllers to tab bar controller. And I'll commit, and I'll push. I'll go back to source control, and I'll click on push. At this point, it pushes my changes. When I click push here, it pushes my changes to GitHub. Great. Okay. Cool. Let's go ahead and set up. Let's go back to our prototype here. Let's go ahead and set up collection view and search bar, and then we'll take a break after that. We won't do any data. We'll only set up what the collection view looks like and the search bar. Everybody? Cool? So let's go do that. So this is controllers. Right now we're about to create a view. So I'll create a new folder. I'll right click on the top of my New York Times stories here. I'll say new group, And my new group is a set of views. Was that a merge conflict? You could have merge conflicts with yourself, by the way. All right, so views, what view we created? We'll create a newsfeed view. Right click on our folder that says views and new file. And it's a Cocoa Touch class. By the way, you could create a Swift file and then make the same thing. So I could totally make a Swift file here and call it newsfeed view. Right? And no, we have changes to do here. What changes do I need to do here? Import UI kit. Very good. So import UI kit. And next, we could simply say create this, right? Code snippets. Yes? Are we using them? We created code snippets last week. Mine is just called create custom view. Yours is probably called something else. So here I could just type in create custom view and press enter. And the only thing I'm changing is news feed view. Before we do anything else, I probably need to update my snippet, but make sure you call common init in both initializers. So that's a good update there. I need to update this. So here we're creating our newsfeed view. What does our newsfeed view have? It's going to have a search bar and a collection view. The search bar will be constrained to the top, left and right, and the collection view will be constrained to the top or the bottom of my search bar, left, right, and bottom of this super view. Okay? So next up, let's go ahead and create public lazy bar search bar of type UI search bar. My search bar, let search bar equal to UI search bar, return search bar. We'll come back and do that actually. Let's do it now. So search bar dot auto capitalizing type. I don't want to have my search bar start out with a capital letter, so I'll change that to none. I could give my search bar a placeholder name. I could say search for article. We could come back and customize more things there if you want to. So instead of when the user types in, for example, a T, if you don't have none, it would be a capital T, right? So it just removes that. Up to you if you want to keep it, but I like starting off with lowercase. Cool? All right, so we have our search bar, great. Let's go ahead and set up the constraints for it. Let's go ahead and set up the constraints. So I'll write a private function here. Call it setup search bar constraints. First, what you want to do is make sure you add subview. So add subview search bar. Step 1, please. Here, very important. What's step 2 here? Translating auto mask. So at that point, I'm saying I do not want to have auto resizing mask do my layout. I want to handle it with auto layout. So what do? I say search bar translating mask equal to false. And my next step is to actually constrain the search bar. So here I'll start off by saying ns layout constraint dot activate. And we said, what do we want? We want the search bar top anchor to be constrained to the safe area. Actually, yeah, to the safe area because there's a bar there. To the safe area layout guide dot top. Because we have a bar, or we will have a bar, on our view controller, so we want to lay it out such that it's at the bottom of the bar and not below the bar. So here, top anchor is top anchor of my safe area. Next, I want my search bar leading anchor to be constrained to its parent's view leading anchor. And lastly, I want my search bar to be its trailing anchor to be constrained to the trailing anchor of its super view. Okay? Make sure that we call our setup constraints in our common init. No, it goes edge to edge. The padding comes with the search bar. It has like the text field has the padding already. Yeah. You could even change the bar thin color of that too if you want. Okay, cool. So we have our search bar. Before we continue, let's see if it actually shows up. So we'll go back to our newsfeed controller. At the top of my view did load, I'll create a private constant, call it newsfeed view, which is an instance of my newsfeed view. I'll go ahead and use load view here because I'm doing it programmatically. And I'll say view gets assigned my newsfeed view. We don't need red here anymore. I'll change red here to system background. This works with dark mode. During the day, or if you have dark mode off, it shows white. During the night, it will go to black. So that's what system background does. So white when dark mode is off or set to light, and black or dark black when dark mode is on. And we'll run our app, see if we have our search bar. Great, we have our search bar. It shows our placeholder text with search for article. Awesome. Next step, we'll create a collection view. Let's go back to our newsfeed view and create a collection view. So public lazy var collection view of type UI collection view. What's the first thing I need when I'm setting up my collection view? Programmatically here. Programmatically, storyboard doesn't matter, but what does a collection view need? A flow layout. So I start off by creating a flow layout. So create flow layout for collection view. So I say layout is of type UI collection view flow layout. I'll give my layout a direction, a scroll direction of vertical. Next, I'll go ahead and create my collection view. I'll say collection view, UI, collection view, initializer with layout. So initializer with frame and layout. So for the frame, I'll say cgrect.0 because I will take care of auto layout with my collection view. So at this point, I set my frame to 0. And my layout will be the layout constant I just created. And then I return my collection view. As we've done before, I'll give my collection view a background color to see if it actually shows up. So here I'll say background color for my collection view gets gray, blue, doesn't matter. And then we'll go ahead and set up the constraints for it. Are we good with the initializer? Can I scroll down? No? Okay. Give me a thumbs up when you guys good. Mel? Aaron, double check Mel's computer. There might be an error there. Okay, so we have our collection view. Let's go set up our constraints. So here we'll say private function setup collection view constraints. As we did with step 1, make sure we say add subview for my collection view. Next, I want to say collection view translates auto resize and mask to false. And then I need to go ahead and set up the constraints. So what's the constraints for our collection view? Where do we start? The top. What's in it? Right, so what's the top? What am I typing out here? Collection view dot Benvenido. Top anchor, right? So top anchor, equal to at this point, I want to lay it out based on my search bar. So its closest neighbor is the search bar. So search bar, right? Search bar dot Christian. What I'm going after is this. I want my collection view to be laid out based on the search bar here. So right now we're working out with the top. Bottom anchor, right? So very good. So here we'll say top anchor is equal to search bar bottom. Awesome. No constant needed here because it's just exactly to the bottom of it. What's the next constraint I could use? Luba? The what? So leading anchor, so collection view that leading anchor is constrained to what? To lead in. Very good. And we'll continue. We'll say collection view trailing anchor constraint equal to trailing of the super view. And lastly, what's my last constraint here? May? So I say collection view dot bottom anchor constraint to, is it bottom anchor? There's going to be a bar there. So to the safe area layout guide, right? Dot bottom or dot top, sorry. No, safe area bottom constraint to safe area bottom. Why am I off there? I'm doing something off there. Okay, cool. And lastly, we'll go ahead and make sure we call setup constraints question.
So the safety layout guide, we need that so that Alexa
Doesn't go below the bar
also we did it just at the bottom of the literally the literal bottom
of the, yeah, exactly, exactly.
So this side we don't need
We don't need a width. No, there's no bar there. We're not going to the margins. We want to go to the exact edge of the device, right? So we don't want to go to the margin area. We want to go to the edge of it. And there's no bar there either. Cool? All right, so making sure, making sure to call, right now we have two constraints we set up. Make sure we call both constraints in our common init. And at this point, people who are done typing, run it and make sure you see the color that you set for your collection view. Can I get a confirmation there? Very good. Okay. For people at that point, you could go ahead and set up your collection view data source and give it 20 cells just to test, right? Give it 20 cells and our height will be 30% of the height of the device, and the width will be the entire width of the device. So that's the item size. Because we did not do item size, but the item size of my collection view height and width. The width is the entire width of the device. The height is about 30%-ish of the height of the device. And then return 20 or 30, whatever there, for the amount of items in your collection view. And you could give your cell a color of white. Because if you don't give it a color, you won't see it. No delegate yet. Yeah, you need a delegate for the item size. So delegate and data source. Anybody still typing constraints? Hands up if you're still typing constraints. Okay. And when we're done with our first test for the collection view, we'll take a break there. Minnie? And then it's a generic cell. Oh, there's one other thing we have to do. Aha.
You don't have a cell you can.
You could have a cell. How can you have a cell? You could create a generic cell, right? What do you have to do for that cell? Register it, right? So register some UI collection view cell, that self. And yeah, very good. Very, very good. Anybody still typing constraints? Hands up. Unable to what? Your code export, reopen and close simulator record. Do that and then rerun it all. Oh, you have name. Name looks for in the bundle. All right, so let's go back to our newsfeed controller. And what are we doing here? We have a lot of things to do here. We after our collection view. First of all, let's see if it shows up. So run it. Run the app, and let's see if we have blue or whatever color we have on the screen. We have blue. That indicates we have a collection view. Right, everybody? Do we have the color of our collection view? Mars yet? All right, cool. So let us continue on. In my view did load, I'll just say setting up collection view, data source, and delegate. So we access it from our newsfeed view dot collection view dot data source equal to self, and newsfeed view dot collection view dot delegate equal to self. So those are the two things we have here. And yes, we'll have errors because we haven't conformed to it. So we'll create some extension on our newsfeed controller. We will address our collection view data source first. And then we'll also address our newsfeed controller UI collection view data source delegate flow layout. Cool. So, like a table view, we have two data source methods we have to implement. The first one we'll type in, we'll say number of items. Here you could just return some arbitrary number. So I'll return 50. Again, we're just testing. We have no API client yet. Next, we need cell for item. And here, we'll say let cell equal to my collection view dot dequeue some reusable cell. Here we'll give it an identifier of story. We'll call it article cell and index path, and I simply return my cell. At this point, I build my application. I shouldn't have any errors.
If we don't have a cell in that one,
Right, so the next question is how do we get that cell?
then it still works. We should bring up and
What?
existing.
But do you have your cells populated? Okay, next up for our delegate, we need to return some item size here. So return item size. Our item size, I think we said the item width or the item height, we'll say approximately 30% of height of device. And item width, we will say 100% of width of device. Cool? Great. So what method do we need here? We simply start typing in item size. Okay, I type in item size and I press enter, right? So I type in item size and I press enter, and off comes our function, size for item, which expects you to return a CG size. A CG size is a tuple. It has a width, it has a height of that particular cell. So here, we start off by saying the max size is type CG size. And for the max size, we get it from our UI screen. .main, .bounds, .size. So the maximum size, we're just trying to get a size constant, so we don't have to always type UI screen, .main, .bounds, .size. We capture it in a constant. So far, what have we done? We returned 50 for the number of items. We returned 50 for the number of items in the collection view. For our cell, we haven't done any API work. The only thing we're doing is just returning a cell. Okay? Luba, were you able to get it working? Luba? Okay, so I thought you went ahead, sorry. Okay, so here we have a max size. Let's go ahead and get our CG size. So my item width is type CG float, and we said it's 100%. So in that case, I'll just say max size dot width. And for my item height, it's also type CG float. And for this, we said about 30%. So we'll say max size dot height times 0.30, which is 30%, right? And lastly, I need to return my size. So I say return CG size. Again, CG size is a tuple of two values. a width and a height. For the width, we'll simply say item width, and for the height, we'll say item height. So we could do any calculation here that we need based on what design we're going for, right? Whether we want 2 items, 3 items, 4 items, 5 items, 1 item, right? This is where you actually return the size of the cell. You could hard code a number in the layout if that's what you're after as far as design. But if you want it to be rendered based on the device's width and height, you would do it in the size for item at. Anybody still typing? Hands up? Okay. If you finish typing, run it and let me know if you confirm that your cells have been rendered. Confirmation, anybody? What do you mean? Did you run it? What's the crash say? You in your assessment, you have a crash, you gotta solve it, right? This is a review. This is a review. We have done this before. Okay. You in the assessment? We've done that before.
So this.
Okay. Let them do it. Let them do it. What do we do in storyboard when we need a cell? Restoration, right? We register it, right? We gotta register something somewhere, right? How we doing? Are we still typing the item size for? Anybody still typing? All right, so let's go run the app and see what crash some of us got here. So I run the app and I get a crash. At this point, do I panic and jump out the window? No. I go up to right where my stack trace is. So this is a stack trace. All right, what's happening here? I go above 0. Are we on board here, Tanya, Mel? Right, are we seeing the error here? I want us to all see what the error says. Because not every day just works, right? There's some days where there's errors and we have to solve them. Mel, what does the error say?
Sorry, what? Oh,
Yours, actually, run it. Mr. Brendan, did you get a crash, sir?
I did not get a crash, but it's not seen by the air source in my video, so
Oh, that's a different error altogether, okay? Mr. Christian, how you doing? Is it working?
No, terminating app due to unlocked exception.
Okay, what's the error say?
Could not appear due to kind of connection automatic cancel.
Right, so this is the big part here, right? Could not DQ, it's looking to DQ something. We say, hey, go ahead, collection view, DQ this cell. And the collection view is looking for a cell to DQ, it cannot find one. Because we never registered, right? Not even make, we never registered a cell, right? So let's make sure that we know what that error is when we see it in our assessment there. All right, so let's go up right in our view did load here. Right in our collection view code, we want to register a collection view cell. So let's go ahead and do that. So we say newsfeed view dot register, well, collection view first, dot register. So here we could register many things. We could register a cell class, We could register a nib. We don't have a nib. We're doing everything programmatic. That's what we said, right? So we'll register a cell class. What cell class can I use here? UI collection view cell. Thank you very much. And here, I'll give it my identifier. What identifier did we use? Article cell. So here we registered a cell, a generic cell, UI collection view cell, not a custom cell, right? Built-in cell, it doesn't have any elements, nothing. So we grab that, we say, go ahead, collection view, use that cell. And your identifier is article cell. So at this point, we've registered the cell in the viewDid load.
What is the cell?
That self is the actual class. It's not an instance of it, it's the actual class, right? It's like when you go to storyboard and you click for that class there, that's the exact same thing you do. Okay?
And that's the same with, okay.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
No, because I'm thinking about when we were, I was thinking about before, when we, loading data using.
The same thing.
It's the same, so basically saying use that exact.
The class.
That exact.
Yeah. Not the instance, but the class. Like, is the class conforming to codable?
Yeah.
Right? So you say that self there to refer to the actual class itself, not an instance of it. Okay, so at this point, we'll run the app and see what we have. Great. Okay, no crash. Can I scroll? I could scroll, but I can't see cells. At this point, I'm like, what's happening? So here, I'll give the cell a background color. Everybody? I really advocate heavily for background colors when you're working with UI. So we said, go ahead and give the cell some background color. So here we'll say background color, because by default, the background color is clear. So we could give it white in our cell for row. We run it again. And here we have cells. Cells are being populated. So there's a lot of setup, right? Before we get to talking about API client in our assessment on Tuesday, right? That point here, you know, okay, my cells are being rendered. I could plug in any API client. If there's data, it will work, right? We gave it a default 50 cells, and we're able to scroll. We're able to see our cells being rendered, right? Without jumping into API client right away. All right, cool. So what else we have here? So at this point, I will stop because I'm about to take a break or whatever. I'll make a commit. I'll go to source control. I'll make a commit. What's my commit message, Julia? Added collection view to newsfeed, right? Controller. So added collection view and search bar, right? That's fine enough here. Added collection view and search bar to newsfeed controller. Great. So I wrote my commit, I commit, and I pushed to GitHub. Because again, we are watching how many commits you have for the project. Okay? What's that? What's a good number? Try to do your commits the same way we do it, then you'll get to that number. There's no magical number,
Yeah.
but 2 is not that number. Right? Not 2, not 3. I would start off by saying, anything north of 10. Okay? Because there's a lot there. There's a lot in that project. But you want to do it based on every logical change you make. We made a big change here. We added a collection view and a search bar. We pushed that. Next time when we come back, maybe we jump into the API client, right? Maybe we add the Swift package managers. Everything you do that's a change there, like a logical change, you want to push. Right? Don't think of, oh, am I getting to 10? Right? But 1 is not good, 2 is not good, 3, right? An employer gives you something like that to work on, and they look at your commits. You do 1 commit, 2 commits, 3 commits. Oh, finish part 1. What does that mean, right? Like, work as you're working on views, as you're working on logic, push those, write a commit on it. Added unit test to test model, whatever. Cool? Because that's a part we have to do too. All right, cool. Any questions? Everybody up to speed here? All right, so we'll stop here.